Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach. I'm joined by my co-host and producer, Holly Deschenes. It's been a little bit of a heavy week for you. You had lots going on at work, but today we're going to try and lighten the load a little bit. So this episode is about permission to play. With many high performers, there's this tendency to take things very, very serious. While there's a need for that in certain areas, we want to be dynamic. We want to engage the other side of the brain, which is kind of more about creativity and flow and being open to possibilities. We can get really stuck in this idea of keeping things very serious. I myself, extremely guilty of that. I'd say most of my 20s, I was a bit of an asshole, just very like serious and uptight about everything. And a lot of that came from needing things to happen more more rapidly than they actually do, unrealistic expectations, putting a lot of pressure on myself. And it was an extremely fruitful time in my life in terms of gaining skills and development. It kind of makes you miserable at the same time if that's the only mode you're operating in. I had really kind of taken all the things out of my life that were more fun oriented besides travel. But even travel, I would try and make about work or business all the time. So this is really kind of shining a light on, there are going to be unbalanced times in our life, but there's also, we do need to make room for play and fun and just kind of being a little bit goofy. And this weekend for me here in Nashville, it's a CMA Fest. And so for those of you that aren't familiar, so basically they block off downtown Nashville and there's free concerts everywhere. And, it's just a madhouse. And definitely overwhelming crowd wise, but it is just a very lighthearted weekend. And they take the money out of the equation, really, where it's just kind of, you can have fun for free if you want to, which is, I think, pretty rare. There are paid events as well, but it's pretty cool to see the city really get behind something. And yeah, you have like a lot of the big, I'm not a big country music fan, but it's just, I like the environment. And there's just in the different bars, you'll see really famous people just pop in and start singing on stage. It's pretty cool to see that. It's taking a little bit of the emphasis off the just needing to make money and kind of putting a little bit of heart back into the city. And while that's also part of the equation, I think it's cool to see that happening and kind of a little bit of the giving back energy. And yeah, so given my journey in 20s, very serious about a lot of things, just a deep dive, just really never feeling good enough and always trying to do better, being really hard on myself. And as I shifted into my 30s, that was kind of really a big focus for me, was to kind of reconnect back to play and just be more lighthearted about things. That's really where I shifted my mindset to see things as a process. We don't need everything right now, even though we think we do. It's kind of allowing things to unfold in a beautiful way. And so, I've really, the entirety of my career, I've worked from home, I've worked remotely. And so it is like a lot of this isolation. And so it's really, my balance is generally during the week, I'm very focused. And then the weekends, it's just kind of whatever. It's open-ended, go out and about, keep things light, interact with people. But in that space, it's very refreshing from a business perspective, where when I go back at things, it's being out and about, it gets your mind working differently. And then you can bring those things with you when you go back into focus and being a little bit more serious. There's the work hard, play hard idea. I think there's a lot to that. And whatever feels authentic for you, I'm fully for. It's just this ability to have different modes, to have a bandwidth where you're not just one way all the time and you can be dynamic with things, because we can become very one dimensional where we just really focus on things. And then if it's not happening as fast as we want it to, that can really start to make us miserable. Like if I'm really pouring all my heart and soul into something, and I'm not giving it space to breathe, that's where we can kind of dip into desperation and a lot of the negative mindsets about things. And if we get really desperate, we might start manipulating things in a negative way to try and accelerate the process. And so it's a really actually a healthy thing to kind of have this taking taking things less seriously, understanding you're on a journey, understanding it takes time for things to develop. And, the seriousness is useful, but it can't really be our only mode because, then we're lacking that other side of our mind where it's really getting connected to creativity, flow, joy. And so really with this work, we're trying to shed a lot of the past things that put us in that place of pain where we feel like we need to make things happen in order to validate us or to make us feel worthy. We're basically trying to heal those wounds so that this can be more of a natural unfolding so that things can be enjoyable and you can also be really good at things at the same time, right? It's this mixture we're looking for. And so, we're going to open this up a little bit and go a little bit into how these things come to be and really that path forward of how do I take things less seriously. And less seriously doesn't mean I'm not trying. It means that I have this broader perspective that I understand there's more to life. And yeah, it creates more of a flow if we allow for that. So we're going to go into breaking that down. Do you have anything you'd like to add so far, Holly?
No, I think this is a great topic. It's probably fitting to try to help help me come out of this sort of heavy, as you mentioned, heavy week that we've had. And as you were talking through that, I think, and I'm sure you're planning to go there, but I think it's going to be worth it to really dive into like how does somebody get to a place where they're too serious. And I think I spent similarly a lot of time, maybe not as much in my 20s, but other times in my life where I was very serious about things because that was sort of rewarded. So I think, especially as a kid, there was being a serious, quiet, studious, well read, quote unquote, smart child
Mhm.
was rewarded. I think that I carried that forward quite a bit.
I think that's really the starting place for a lot of this stuff is uh, we attach our value to kind of performative things. If I get good grades, I get validation, or if I'm a good kid, and all these things it's relative to your parents and how they're operating. A good kid could just mean you sit in the corner and be quiet and you don't express yourself. So the context is super important to these things. And yeah, it's like this really with the emphasis on work. That's where a lot of people go in, where it's especially as you become an adult, if you work very hard, that can be obviously financially rewarded. That becomes this a bit of a trap where we get very one dimensional and that's where I think this hyper focus starts to become on money, where this is the thing that society values. And so if I put all my eggs in that basket and that's where that's what's going to lead to my happiness. And generally it's quite the opposite because we have all these things underneath the surface that aren't being dealt with, where it's just like we shut down so many aspects of ourselves. We do just go all in on these ideas, yeah, that may mean relationships are suffering, and I don't have any hobbies, and I have nothing else to do. There's nothing to really lighten the load for me. That could actually lead to depression and being miserable, even if you have a lot of money. So there's these dynamics we want to take a look at where it is really rooted in self worth. It's what was rewarded for you, and I see this a lot. I think it's really a huge disservice with youth sports these days, where basically all these kids are having to act like professional athletes from the time they're 5 years, 7 years old, or something like that. You see it baseball, it's all become about this big industry with a lot of money involved, and parents are investing tons of money, and then it's just the games become very serious. And so I think that's part of that training is that all that matters is performance. I'm here to make the argument that we actually, and I do this a lot with my clients, athletes in general, the goal is actually to get them to be less serious. It's to have them relax more because that's actually going to create the optimal state. We're trying to release pressure. We're trying to dissipate that tension that gets created when everything becomes so amplified in terms of the seriousness of something. So my worth and my values are wrapped up in this thing. This is where I get validated. This is where people love me if I'm successful here. And it starts to become this very much external focus where the performative actions are all that's rewarded, but I might feel empty inside. Okay. And so we're here to try and balance these things out. Yes, you can be successful and you should work very hard at things and you should have that focus, but then we also need these other dynamics and they actually do benefit you in many ways. Outside of just feeling better, like I said, we're able to be more connected to ourselves and more in tune with what we want, and we're able to access our intuition, which is like highly leveraged actions we can take because my system's relaxed. It's not building so much pressure around things. I stop forcing things. I get more in this place of allowing things to happen. And I really like to see it as like an active preparation, meaning I put the focus in, I put the work in, and then based on the feedback I'm receiving, I'm present with things and I'm making adjustments to try and align with things rather than just get in this like blanket mindset of you need to make things happen. And there's a time and place for that. I think all these things, there's the surface level understanding of them, which is generally where I think most people operate, where they think they're doing the right things, but that's also what's contributing to them being miserable and unhappy. And it's also what's contributing to maybe failed relationships and problems on that end, where they may be crossing lines because they're too fixated on trying to achieve something that they're not picking up on all the other cues going on. And so even if you obtain that thing you're trying to achieve, it's going to be empty. So we really do take a holistic approach to this where we're trying to account for all the variables where it may take a little bit longer to achieve, but you're trying to get to this place where you can, it might sound kind of corny, but have it all. But that means I'm in tune with myself. I'm feeling good about myself. There's character development mixed in this stuff where I'm actually operating in high integrity and authenticity and aligned actions. And in that place, that is more lighthearted, that those are cleaner actions that actually long term, it's kind of those ideas of like networking's a big one where people become fixated on, they start objectifying people, being like, oh, this person's in this position. So they have something I want. How can I manipulate the situation to get what I want? So you're not like treating people like people, you're treating them as an object to obtain your goals. That creates empty relationships and because it's very transactional. And all good things take time. And so proper relationships, they unfold over time and it's this very clean, natural thing if we allow it to be, where we're not placing our goals on other people. Everything here is more about this embodied action and what's the highest and best good I can operate under. I want these things to happen, but I don't need them to happen to validate my worth. It's finding that beautiful center ground of I'm allowing processes to unfold in a very natural way that actually is the cleanest way too. Meaning like I'm not I'm not hurting other people. I'm not making shady moves. I'm allowing things to unfold, because that's really this idea of control is when our mind is focused on something and we're attaching all our worth to it, it feels like we need to make it happen. When that system's going on, our mind's always engaged with how can I make this happen? And basically, it's putting that urgency and pressure on it too. Okay. And so this would be like kind of a sleazy salesperson.
Sure.
That's kind of prototypical model of being pushy, forceful, manipulative, like all that stuff. And that's just, I'm just trying to achieve the goal. I don't really care what I have to do to get there. That comes at an expense. So it costs us connection to ourself. There's also some shame that's built up in there that we're probably not in tune with. Our ego is very good at justifying our actions. So if I'm doing those things, my mind is going to be telling me justifications for why it's okay I did those things. But I took advantage of another person. So so it's just that's not the optimal way. And that's what creates that emptiness inside where I'm just entirely externally focused. I need to achieve these things. That makes me feel better, but it makes me feel better for an instant. If I make the sale, if that happens, I might be, oh, I have more money in the bank now.
Sure.
But then it becomes, well, okay, now where's the next one? If you immediately go into that mode because, oh, I need my next fix now. It's quite literally like an addiction of this made me feel better, but now I actually feel worse on the other side of it. So we have that rebound effect that's based in shame. And that's because deep down we know we're not operating in a clean way. Okay. So that's where it is keeping ourselves in check. It's and having trusted people around us that can give those feedback give that feedback to us is very important, because all these things can be a slippery slope, and they do get financially rewarded quite often. And you see this all the time with leaders that maybe have walked all over people to get to where they've gotten,
Yeah.
and their default in the way they operate is out of integrity. They view it as a game, and it's all like manipulations. And when you're happy with yourself, you really can't do those things, because you're not looking for the next fix to make you feel better. You already feel good. So you become indifferent to the timing a little bit, where it's just like you
Sure.
see it as like a process of, well, I'm going to keep working at this, and eventually things are going to come together and it's going to start to click. You put things in this realistic perspective where you're not trying to manipulate so much. And so these are some examples that I think probably resonate with most people, because we can kind of see them play out time and time again, of just people that don't act in integrity. They might have all the material things, but it's what's going on internally. That's what we're here to look at. Okay. And so all these things, they have a cost to them. And so we want to be in tune with that, where I want things to unfold in a way that's natural, where I'm doing the best I can, but I'm not manipulating situations outside me in a negative way in order to accelerate the process to get what I want. Okay. And so that's that it's an art. Sometimes we cross the line, and then that's where shame comes in, where we feel bad about it. If you're connected to yourself, you'll feel that. And then so that's where we want to hold ourselves accountable to try and take corrective actions to try and clean these things up. Oftentimes people work in a system like a company, where it's like you might not be fully on board with things you have to go along with. And it might be to save your job. It might be there might be some tough calls here. And so the things that we're not in alignment with, that we have to go through with anyway, that can really hurt us. It doesn't feel very good inside, but especially if we're connected emotionally, and we have empathy for other people, it makes it very hard to move forward with some of these things if we don't feel like it's based in integrity. I do a lot of coaching on that too, of like, how do we navigate the situation in the cleanest possible way, given the context of the situation? Because yeah, not everything has to be this, I'm digging in, I need to be self-righteous here, and I need to give up my job in order to maintain integrity here. It's, well, okay, what can I do to continuously rebalance this, so I put myself more in a position where can act more and more in integrity over time. So everything's this progression of, this is where I'm at, what are my options? And if none of my options are good, I have to do the best I can. And then I just continually focus on how to clean things up over time. How do I embody more and more integrity over time? It's finding the nuance, and that's what allows us to forgive our past. Is I'm really am trying here, and I didn't have, my hands were tied. If I just stay locked in the shame, though, that gets created from these different situations, it can really paralyze me. It can really create this small world where I get very jaded and bitter and resentful. And so that's a slippery slope. It's just, we have to find ways to unpack the shame. And that's always under this idea of, I'm doing the best I can given the hand I'm dealt.
You shared a couple of examples through that, like the sleazy salesperson or someone who's high up in a company. What would it what would it look like? Let's just use the salesman example because I think that's easy for people to relate to. If you do have, because there has to be times people have run into salesmen who were not sleazy, where they
Mhm.
did enjoy the interaction. So I'm just thinking about, if we're talking about someone who's so serious, they're driving so hard that they're pushing for a sale in a way that makes people uncomfortable, versus
Mhm.
somebody who's doing this from a place where it is playful. And I don't mean like in the manipulative play the game sort of way, but more like in the playful, true sense of the word way, or joyful or whatever. What would that look like on the flip side?
We see it as a collaborative approach, where I'm treating the other person like an actual person. I'm not seeing them as simply a number, right? I don't really want the sale unless like I can actually help them. It's stepping out of scarcity mindset. And that's what all this stuff is about. I'm able to connect to people on a human level, and I'm here to help them solve a problem. if I'm not the right fit for that, like I also have that awareness because like we're not sacrificing short-term success for the long term. Everything is a long game with these mindsets. Is I don't because if I manipulate this person now and they don't need what I have to offer, then I basically lost that person. They're not going to feel good about what happened anyway. On the other side of it is like, well, I'm going to treat everybody with integrity and I don't need things to happen now because it might be a not right now thing for this person, but they might open doors for me in the future. They might create all sorts of opportunities down the road that could be greatly amplified than me just fixating on like, oh, I need this result right now. What we're talking about here is when we step out of scarcity mindset, we're able to zoom out, we're able to see the bigger picture. We're aligning with values and qualities that are rooted in integrity, where it's just like I also have a trust that if it doesn't work out with this person, I can always create another opportunity. Right. So I'm not seeing things in a limited way as, oh, I need this and this is all there is. Okay, if this door is closed, it might be a not right now, it might be a never, but they might know other people. And if I leave a positive impression on that person, they might refer me to other people without even buying. Right. So there's all these different dynamics that if we zoom out, we see everything as this ongoing process. We see everything as leading to more. We see everything as there's unlimited opportunities around me. I just have to line up with them. But if I have very limited exposure, it's just going to be like, let's say there's no leads coming in, and this is all this I need this, otherwise I can't pay my bills or something like that. Now I might be trying to manipulate that situation to get that short term relief. And so all these things are about this short term fix, and once again, like if we're in those situations where there are no opportunities, it's tough, right? You do have to survive technically. So if that's all available to you, if that's all that's available to you, that's where we have to unpack the shame. Is like, well, given what was going on, like I had to feed my family and all these things, so maybe I had to do those things. But that's where we have to be like, okay, well, given the context of the situations, that may have been the only opportunity you were in tune with, and so we have to learn from that. I'm like, what problems that caused by acting that way, number one. So you learn why you shouldn't do that in the future. But then it's like, how can I create more opportunities so I'm not in that position as much? And so it's always about, and that's the creative aspect that we're talking about, is through the shame of I'm treating people like numbers, we learn to be, well, yeah, that doesn't feel very good. Even though I got the money, I still feel empty and miserable inside. And so some people never break that chain though, because they continually to operate on shame, and then it just continues to grow and scale. Okay. And so that's somebody that's going to be pretty miserable is they've given up a lot of themselves in order to make themselves successful. But we right the ship every step of the way once the awareness gets created. So if I'm really dissociated from my emotions, I'm not going to be in tune with the shame I'm feeling when I do those things. But as we start to wake things up and create the awareness, now it's like, yeah, I did this. I can see how that was out of bounds. How can I do this better? How can I forgive myself as well? Because that was my level of awareness. That's all I knew given the context of that situation. And so that's how everything is. How can I let myself off the hook once I know better? And that's the key piece, is once I know better, because when we only have bad options, we're not going to be acting from a clean place. We're going to be acting from survival, which that's where competition lives. That's where, oh, I can walk all over other people as long as I'm good and all that stuff. So we shift to collaboration. I'm creating space. I'm letting things breathe. I'm able to it's more of a partnership with the people I'm trying to sell with, where I'm just trying to build a relationship that might lead to other things down the road. And you never know who the person knows. You might just need to meet that person and they might need to talk about the situation to somebody else, and that might lead to other opportunities for you. So when we're able to zoom out, we're not in that security, safety, survival mindset. We can see bigger pictures on, I just need more exposure to more people. I just need to I'm on this path, and there's things that I want, but I don't need them right now. I start to dial back the desperation behind things when I step out of that survival mindset. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're just trying to open it up, because we're only in these positions because of really our upbringing. and what we were taught from day one. All that stuff might have been modeled for us. We might have just seen our parents do these things, and that's what like was burned into our system of like, oh, this is how you do it. But when you were a kid, you probably felt how it was off when you would see it. But the more we do it, the more numb we get to it. If the biggest reason for things being so serious is generally a lack of security in the household growing up. So that is going to be, yeah, the financial insecurity, or it's going to be like a parent that's hypercritical or trying to like live through me or trying to put their worth on me. They start building all this pressure around things. And so I have to basically stop being a kid. I have to start taking things very seriously. And and that's where I lose that sense of play of like everything just gets dialed up where I need to hit the numbers, I need to perform, I need that's all that matters. But then it's at the expense of like basically our soul because we're not connecting inward. And so everything becomes this external achievement. And so we want the play because the play is what creates the space, which allows ourselves to relax, and in this relaxed place, we can start to see these actions. We can start to see like, oh, wait, there is a better way to do this. Yeah, I don't actually like how that felt. I want to align with a way that feels better to me because that's what's going to actually create joy and happiness in my life. You can have all the money in the world, but if we're not working this other side of it, that's all going to be empty and it's pretty much going to be for nothing. And you're not going to feel very good about the things you've done to other people. It's this ability to zoom out. It's how can I take this less serious? And a big one we talk about quite a bit in sessions is like, well, you're still alive. You've made it this far. There's progressions to everything. We can let go of some of these coping mechanisms or survival instincts because they're no longer valid for our life anymore. They got you here, but they're also what's going to hold you back at the higher levels. Because nobody wants to operate with somebody that's operating from desperation. Nobody wants to be around that stuff, the manipulative stuff. As we see the flaw in it, we ask ourselves, what's the better version? Somebody that's in that collaborative space, we're not, we don't have the desperate energy. And so everything starts to become a take it or leave it thing where it's just everything's optional. I'm not trying to force anything. If this works, great. If not, I know there's other opportunities out there for me. And so that's how we build our self-worth too, is we have to be able to see those things. We have to be able to see that I have this ability to create other opportunities if this doesn't work out. And so that's me going inward and starting to value myself. And then it's also in that place when we start to build that, yeah, we start to pay attention more to the things that don't feel very good because we're waking back up awareness. We're starting to clean out all the suppression and the numbed out things where it's just like, yeah, I understand when something's off. I understand, I pay attention to interact. That's how we develop emotional intelligence is I can put myself in somebody else's situation and I can kind of understand where they're coming from. Okay. And if I'm making somebody uncomfortable or they don't feel good, it's well, okay, is that something I'm doing or is it something they're holding on to from their past that, maybe their wiring's off where the situation is just kind of off balance for them. And you see this a lot with sales, especially in coaching, it's you charge a lot of money for these things. And so you see a lot of like tug of wars going on internally with people. Yeah, I want this, but then I also, there's a sabotage part or there's the scarcity parts that come up. It's very rarely a straightforward like sale, like unless somebody's like really ready for it or has had coaching in the past and understands the value of it. There is this going back to there's this belief that even if I do this, maybe I won't follow through on it, or I'm going to sabotage it in some way, or I won't get the results because I'm not going to be backing it up with new actions. And there's so many different things that come into view when we're talking about human emotions. A collaborative salesman is going to be in tune with that process of understanding the complexities of people. And so that's where it doesn't have to be so serious. It can be lighthearted and it's more of, well, yeah, I want what's best for you because I want what's best for myself. We treat everything like a mirror. That's this treat other people how you want to be treated thing is how would I want to be talked to by a salesman, right? Like how would I want to be interacted with? How would I want to be treated? And that is kind of this collaborative relationship. So that would be the other side of it.
Oh, it's before I knew you were gonna pick this topic this week, I stumbled across this video where it was this woman who was talking about how, to all the points you've already made, but she was talking about how growing up you're taught all the things you just talked through, the performative things, the scarcity mindset, this drive for money and the societal pressures or whatever. But we don't do a good job of teaching people what joy is and how to find joy and how to live in joy and how the things that you actually want from life will come to you if you can find a way to live from the place of joy. I'm just thinking a little bit about, there's some actual science behind that. There's some real sort of stuff that backs up this idea that you're talking about. I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit more around the benefits of like finding your way. I know I've personally experienced them, and we'll try to think up some examples as we go through this, but when you find your path to the joyful thing, to the thing that brings that into your life, that doesn't feel like you have to be performative or serious or whatever, what are those actual benefits that you're getting that are, I'm not doing a good job asking this question right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really viewing everything as, how does it affect your nervous system? Like, am I in this contracted place of stress or am I relaxed? All the best things happen when we're relaxed. That's when I can be in flow. That's when I'm not needing things from other people. I think a main point here is often what we think we need is generally built on scarcity mindset and not feeling good enough. And so a lot of the things we're striving for like aren't actually aligned with who we really are. It's things where we're like taught to want that are based on not feeling good enough. A lot of times as you move towards those things, you start to ask those questions of, why am I even doing this anymore? Because you just feel pulled towards it, but you're just like, yeah, this doesn't even excite me anymore. I just feel like this is what I'm supposed to want. It's kind of that idea of, you get what you need, not what you want. So we think we need things, but it's generally just a want. But I'm just trying to get to that thing that's I think is gonna make me feel better. That's really what this is about. It's like we get so serious because we've attached so much to this one thing that sucks the joy out of it. If we fully follow that, we get to this place of eventually kind of questioning everything, where we're just like, yeah, I achieved all the things I want to achieve and it still just sucks. It doesn't feel good, even though I have all this stuff now. That's where we start the journey inward, is to be like, well, okay, I get why I wanted those things, or why I felt like I needed them. And the need piece is like to meet our base level of being seen, heard, respected, valued, all those things that we were lacking inside. What if I give myself those things regardless of any external thing? If I didn't receive that in childhood, as an adult, I can do the work to try and meet those needs. And I can also find complementary relationships with people that are going to help me build those things by associating with healthier people that are less transactional, that treat me less as like an object and more as a person. I'm going to start to heal those wounds. And then that's where my system starts to relax more and more. We start to regain this trust again. That's why it's really important to connect to being lighthearted and playful, is because we've attached so much to things that probably aren't even a good fit for us. And we've been so serious about those things. The play piece is really about creating space to question that, to be like, okay, I don't like who I'm becoming when I'm pursuing these things. That's really how I felt about baseball after a while. I was like, yeah, this isn't even fun anymore. I'm miserable every day. I've made it so serious. I've cut everything else out of my life. And it's just like, for what? It was built on a house of cards. When we connect back to ourselves, we start to see the flaws in it. Like, oh, I'm just trying to prove my worth. I'm trying to prove my value. These are all things that I learned in childhood that if and I idealize these things of, oh, if I get there and I have all this money, then I'll feel loved, or something of that nature. These are all traps. They're all built on a very immature mindset as a kid, because oftentimes we don't get all the emotional needs we need. Our imagination fills in the gaps. So we start to romanticize things. We start to see like, oh, if I have this partner, it's going to like save me from myself. Like everything's going to be perfect then. Or if I have this job or whatever the situation is, we project all those, the solution to all those negative things we feel about ourselves, we project it onto things. And then that's where we get super serious and desperate about it. The play piece is about, it's about kind of seeing the flaw in all that. Because it's not actually built on anything real anyway. These are all lies you're telling yourself. Because the truth is we're all valued, we're all loved, we're all, all these things you come here with, even if your parents can't mirror that to you. And we can rewire all these things in your system to be supportive of, well, yeah, I can actually fill my own cup. I can actually feel better about myself today. And a good way to do that is actually to just have some fun. That doesn't have to be in a desperate, weird place of like, oh, I'm going to do a bunch of drugs or something. And so that I'm numbing out. It's more of just, well, yeah, like, what do I enjoy doing? I start asking those questions of how can I have more fun? How can I connect with people more authentically? Yeah, you could go take an improv class or something. If you're a super serious person, go put yourself into situations that, where you have to kind of look like an idiot, because that's how we start to loosen the nervous system by being like, yeah, this isn't all a big deal. Everything's not life or death anymore. And at one point it may have been. That's we're not discounting any of that. Many people are born into very tough situations, and that's where everything is life and death. That's like very serious stuff. Or at least emotionally it feels that way. And so we adopt all these ways of being in order to kind of safeguard. This is how I stay safe in this environment. The truth is, like, if we carry that, we don't learn those lessons, we're going to carry that with us for the rest of our life, and we're actually never going to be happy, quite literally. We're never going to find joy because we're operating on under all these false ideas and it was just simply because the things were mirrored through our caregivers. So there could be abandonment. There could be like, I didn't feel wanted. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel, and that's sort of very intense things to deal with, but we want to go back and we want to heal that stuff. That's the whole premise of this podcast is like, you are the way you are today because of things that have happened to you. And we can't just move forward without addressing some of that stuff, because some of it was designed to keep you safe. And you're going to have this internal tug of war going on if you don't address it. That's where sabotage comes from. That's where I stop myself or I shut down. I'm not able to take the actions I need to be able to build this productive way of being that we're talking about. So we can readdress these things. We can take a deeper look and try and heal them. And at the end of it, it's always generational. Generally, we see like, oh, my parents were the way they were because of their parents, and we just follow it down the line. Through awareness, that's where we make these adjustments. It's, oh, I understand. I know better now. So I can basically operate at a different standard. I'm not going to do those things because I see the flaw in it. The problem is many families didn't talk about things, that there was just a lot of default things, and this is how we do it, and you don't question it. And so with this work, we're questioning it. We're like, yeah, is there a better way? Is there a way that's cleaner that makes me feel better about myself? You know, does this person really hold the keys to my worthiness, or do I? Right. And so, you know, we only get there by connecting back kind of with this child version of us that knew all these things before life got in the way. Okay. It's the child that, that isn't doubting themselves, that isn't questioning themselves, that's just having fun with things. That's a very powerful, creative place to be. And so if we can start to embody some of those ideas, that's really what we're talking about with like, charisma and people that are magnetic. They kind of have this childlike presence about them, but they might be very competent as well. We're trying to
Sure.
find these balances of like, okay, yeah, this, because if somebody's like really serious all the time, like they're not going to connect well with people, right? Because your system's in this constant state of tension. And so you can't feel other people you're interacting with. It's kind of this one-sided thing going on. When I start to open up, I dismantle a lot of these survival mechanisms that I've built up, and I start to see them for what they are, where it's just stuff that's been passed down. It's just from people that didn't know any better, and I know better now. And actually, if I want to be joyful, like I need to find ways to release the shame and the guilt and the fears, and I need to put it into its proper perspective. And it's always under this idea of I was doing the best I could with what I knew. And now I know better. I'm going to take some steps towards how can I get my system to relax? And that's going to be through being playful, making things less serious, taking the pressure off. And that's actually the paradox of it is that's actually where I get my best performance. That's where I'm better able to connect with other people because I'm open, I'm not shut down. And so it's this playful state where all the good things in life happen. Okay. And so we need to find it. And I'm not discounting the seriousness stuff because the seriousness is a stage. It's something we need to go through to actually develop a skill is we need to work really hard at something for an extended period of time in order to gain some skills and abilities. But then the next level of that is going to be about taking it less serious. It's going to be about opening it up and allowing all your training to work. Okay. And that's going to be from a relaxed place. And so we need to find some time for creativity. Yeah. Just doodling, drawing, zoning out. It's not checking a bunch of boxes all the time. It's leaving time for having unproductive time where you're sitting doing nothing, just you could just be watching, but let's say we shame everything, right? It's like even if
Yeah.
I'm watching something that makes me laugh, it's just like, oh no, you need to be productive, right? It's like
Right.
it's like we need it all, right? But we need time to focus, we need time to let loose, we need everything in between. And so it's more in this place of allowing. It's are you here to live or are you just here to perform? Okay. And so that's an important distinction. The paradox is if I'm actually living and connected to myself, that's actually my best performance I can possibly have. Okay. Because now I'm in tune with things. I'm in the flow. I can feel my body and I can receive feedback. I'm not shut down. Because when we're in a state of tension and stress, it's all these survival instincts are engaged and we're closing ourselves off from opportunity and we're operating from this scarcity mindset where we're kind of just trying to build this bubble around our life. But our entire system supports it, right? It's like, oh, if you're not happy, then you start taking pills and you won't feel it as much. You not being happy, it's a clue that we need some different things going on. It's a clue that you've probably taken things some serious or you've given up on things or feel hopeless. That's all information for us to work with. And we want to question that. How did I get here? Why am I feeling this way? Because there probably was a point in your life where there was some excitement, there was a spark, there was something there that connected you to this playful energy. So how do I get if I had it once, I can always get back to it. It's just going to take some work. Yeah, because I've built all this stuff on all these filters on top of it that tell me it's not okay to be that way. So all we do is we just shave it off layer after layer to try and get back to the core of you, which is the version of you before all these things happened. Okay. And it's still intact. It's just muted. It's just shut down. We want to get back to that because that's when your world starts to open up again. That's when we have some adventure going. That's when we have excitement. That's when you can dream again, is we're starting to wake up that creative side of us, which is like what makes life worthwhile. If that's being connected to that is where all the best things in life happen. If you're not there now, we can get back there. That's really the big message here is that being serious is actually what holds you back. It's actually what shuts that down. And it's because we've put too much on the achievement or needing to be a certain way because that's what was safe at one point for us. And so we have to question that. We have to find ways of looking at that differently. How can I open myself back up?
So for someone who is looking to open themselves back up, maybe they haven't in the recent history been experiencing, much joy or much play. What would be sort of the things that you would suggest that could be practices that would bring that back? I know you mentioned like drawing or finding things that make you laugh as a couple of things just a minute ago, but what are some other things that would help someone find their way back to that?
Always with this, we're talking about start small, start in a way that feels but we're not it doesn't need to be these dramatic shifts immediately. It's just like, yeah, what are some small things I can do to get heading in this direction, right? Some of these things, like most people like music, right? That's
Yeah.
yeah, you can listen to some music, you can like kind of dance, you can get your body moving and just like have fun and be playful again. And that's something you can do by yourself if you feel insecure about it. I can do that by myself with the door shut, right? And nobody has to
Sure.
see it. right?
Yeah.
It's just like allowing yourself to take the pressure off, to just be like, yeah, like I'm just gonna flow with it. Because music's good because it can get your body moving. Like if you can kind of get out of the insecurities and loosen up, right? That's the whole goal of that. Yeah. So movement, laughter. So watch funny things. If you have friends that crack you up or whatever, go spend time around them. Go engage with other people that don't take things so seriously. There's a balance to all this stuff. Some people like don't take anything serious and their life
Right.
reflects that. So it's just like, well, yeah, maybe I have that person in my life uh to make things more lighthearted for me, right? So maybe it's like, okay, when I need some of that, I know where to go. Yeah, and it's just kind of just being playful and stupid and not thinking much about things. That's all we're trying to do here. Uh, Making room for non-productive time. So like even like I said, with youth sports, it's like that's so serious. Now you're supposed to have a job and then you're supposed to have a side hustle and everything's supposed to be everything it's got to be serious and you got to make money and let's have versions of that. Okay. You want that, but then what are some things where I don't I don't put that on it? Like it doesn't need to be anything. I'm just doing this because I want to do it. I'm just doing it because it's fun to me. We take all the pressure off things. Follow your curiosity. If you want to take a dance class or improv class or cooking class, right? It's just like go engage your mind in a different way that you're a beginner at something. You haven't worked at this thing. And so you kind of have to fail. You kind of have to look stupid. Those are important ideas. It's like it gets your mind working differently. I'm trying to learn a new skill. We don't usually put high expectations on things that we haven't done much. It's just kind of like, well, yeah, I'm just going to see what happens. I don't need it to be anything. I just want to try it out. And and so that's a good way to start to dial back the seriousness of stuff. Always, we're trying to take the shame out of things. Okay. And so that means like reframing our mistakes, right? So if there's something I'm not proud of, or there's something, that I did that I wish I didn't, let's take a look at that. It's like, how can I see this and how can I let myself off the hook in terms of shame, where it's the shame is there, it's a messenger. Okay. And if I go into something and I start to see, yeah, why did that happen? I start to view it as a learning experience. It's not stuck in this place of shame. It's like the shame's there so that we can learn from it. So if we go address it, I can start to release the shame and now my system starts to relax around it because I learned the lesson. Okay. So we want to see things as these mistakes is like it's a natural part of the process. We all make mistakes. It's literally the only way to learn is you have to do things the wrong way in order to learn the right way. But we have to allow our mind to be open enough to see that dynamic. So many people, when they go to get started, they shame themselves too much and then they basically just stop right there. So everything should be this ongoing process where it's like, yeah, like actually part of the process is me getting in tune with that shame and taking a deeper look at it so that I can move forward from it, not stay stuck. People are very hard on themselves. So especially if your parents were hypercritical, one or both, there's going to be part of your self-talk is going to be hypercritical to yourself. That's a big piece what we talk about here is developing self-compassion, allowing yourself that freedom to make mistakes, to not do things in an optimal way. You don't have to pick yourself apart. That's just generally the voice of our past. If we were raised in an environment like that, it's like, how can I lighten the load? How can I talk to myself in a little bit healthier way? And really, we want to look for like neutralizing thoughts. So that just means some productive truths I know about myself. I work really hard at what I do, or I know I'm a good person, or I try my best. Those types of things. Those are like neutralizing statements where it can start to form this healthier relationship with yourself, which is ultimately what we're after. Is we're stepping out of the hypercritical performative way of being to I I'm starting to kind of loosen up and I gain greater access to my skills and abilities that were developed in the hypercritical mode. That perfectionist mentality is generally, yeah, we get really good at things, but then we're not happy with anything either. So it's like, how can I start to shift that mode of like, I actually get greater access to those skills I developed by being easier on myself now. Okay. Maybe I needed to be hard on myself for a while. That's how I developed this thing. But the next level of it is going to be about me having a healthy relationship with it. And it's, of us are harder on ourselves than we are on other people. Where it's well, how would I treat my best friend? And so we want to start to look at ourselves that way. What's the relationship with myself? But yeah, I want to be more patient. I want to be more compassionate. I want to I want to be kind of more in tune of like that supportive mode rather than the tearing down mode. That can take a lot of work because that's all built on that shame that we're talking about. It's all the times you were hard on yourself is that's really shame speaking. Okay. And it's very low energy and it's very dense and it's hard to let go of that. And so all we're trying to do is open these things up and soften them. And then yeah, this detachment you start to develop. It's like, well, I feel good. I'm heading this direction. Like I'm moving towards things, and I don't need it all to happen right now. I trust that it's going to eventually unfold. I have to stick with things, and by taking the pressure off, like I increase the likelihood of me staying on my path too, because I'm not going to hit the burnout and exhaustion and all those things. I'm extending my timeline so that I give myself some space to grow into things. And that's the proper context. Things take time and we have to keep working at them. And so if we're going to be working at it for a while, we might as well find ways to enjoy it. We might as well find ways to be playful with it. And so that's really all we're talking about here is creating some space, engaging that other side of our mind that doesn't take everything so seriously, where we can get some creativity flowing. And that's going to mean I'm not checking boxes. I'm not objectifying everything. I'm in this place of kind of more flowy, open-ended. It doesn't have to be a hard line. And the proper recipe to everything is generally a mixture of the two. So if I've been too hard on myself, like I probably need to spend a lot of time trying to soften that. Okay. And then over time, I'll be like, okay, there's some benefits over here that maybe I left behind. So I'm going to try and bridge that gap. I'm going to try and move towards the center where I have different modes depending on what I'm doing. So some things need the more serious mindset. Some things need the more playful mindset. And in the mixture of the two, that's going to be what generally most of the people we admire, that they're going to have those qualities. They're going to have the
Sure.
mixture where they can be playful and they're very good at things. It's going to be, they make things look easy because they're in tune with the flow, but it's because of all the seriousness and hard work they put into it. Okay. And so that's what kind of mastery is finding that balance between the two. And so the problem is we mostly value just the one side and we neglect the other. People that go too far the other, so like the starving artist or musician or whatever, right? There's no serious side, there's no business sense. It's just like, okay, but then we need both. We need the material things to survive. That's part of life too. It's it's not like it's not saying things are all bad. It's being like, well, what's the proper balance in my life? Like what's gonna get me to where I want to go? And and so it's allowing for we need to go on the one side to learn the flaws of that, and then we open it up to the other, and we generally overcompensate and go too far the other way. And then it's always just the back and forth to try and find the right recipe that works for us. But so we're trying to that's increasing bandwidth so you have access to all of it over time because everything in life, depending on the context of the situation, you're going to need to show up in different ways. We want to have access to that when it's necessary because that's how you really build your life the way you want is we need a variety of skills and abilities to get where we want to go.
So this is a good topic, and I think I've said this in like the last three or four, but it's probably going to be worth a future conversation of like whatever the next level version is to talk about this again. But if folks are looking for ways to connect with you, let's talk about the best ways for them to do that. If they're looking for coaching, if they're looking for someone to talk to, they're just interested in finding out more about what you do.
You can visit my website, brandonthilk.com. So I offer a free 30-minute strategy session. So you can book that through the website and we can just have a conversation about what you've got going on. And if I can help you through that, that's great. If not, I'll give you some insights and what I think would be some good next steps for you. And so there's that. So I offer one-to-one coaching. I also work with teams and I'll be putting out a new group coaching program here shortly. So be on the lookout for that. Also on my website, if you want to sign up for my newsletter. So every Monday I send out a newsletter about some insightful ideas for the week and also a recap of our podcast here. So you can sign up for my newsletter on the homepage there. I post daily on at Brandon Thielk on Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we're hitting everything now. So TikTok as well, but it's really generally the same content everywhere. So wherever your preferred mode to find me is, like, I'm probably there. So, but yeah, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to help you out if I can. If not, just keep enjoying the content and share and like if you and subscribe if you can.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hmm.
We'll make sure all the links show up in the show notes, both for the podcast and on YouTube and for all the platforms. So the one that works for you, that's where you
Hmm.
can find all the content.
Yeah, don't forget to lighten up and have some play in your life and not take it so serious and enjoy the ride. We'll talk
Yeah.
to you next time.
Great. Sounds good. Talk to
Yeah.
you later, Brandon.